Well, hello again and welcome to my channel. My name is DJ Nocturna, and I have a guest today who I've interviewed, I think twice, on an audio interview, multi-instrumentalist who plays many instruments, Ali Jafri. Hi, Ali.
Hi, Anne.
Um,
Thank you.
yeah, and your latest project is called the Shadow Majlis. This is
Yeah,
completely brand new, right? And you have a website for it as well, and you have a new your debut album is called Departure.
yeah,
Uh, hey, thank you for doing it. It's a masterpiece. Really, I love the instruments. Of course, I love the sitar and all that. It's just so soothing. It's really beautiful. And,
thank you.
and I know this album and this project was created out of great tragedy that happened. But it just look what happened. I mean, this is an amazing. It came out so beautifully, and I think it's very healing as well.
Yeah, one of the beautiful things about music and art in general is the catharsis of being able to take our pain and grief and transmute it and make something of it that can then be shared. Because uh, while I was going through this tragedy, I was acutely aware of other people's this is one of the things that happens when you go through hard times. It actually raises your empathy, and you realize, you know what, I'm not the first and I'm not the last who's going through this, and there's other people with their own version of tragedy. It's not necessarily a child dying from cancer, it could be a lot of things, people living in horrible conditions. And i I really felt the need to connect with it, and some of the artists on the album also connected with it. I recorded some stuff in Turkey. I landed in Turkey about 4 hours before the earthquake that happened last February. So I went there to do some recording, and that tragedy was so huge. I don't know if you remember that earthquake, but it was massive. There was a lot of devastation, a lot of loss of life, and the whole country was grieving. I was there too, grieving. It was terrible. It was horrible conditions to be there.
Yeah.
I was in Istanbul, so it wasn't, it was far from Istanbul, so I wasn't affected by the earthquake, but I was definitely affected by the sadness, of the event. And having been in the country,
Yeah, yeah.
seeing the news, and everybody, the Turkish people are so united. Everybody countrywide was deeply affected. And
Mm.
so the recording I ended up doing was with a guy named Kerem, a good friend of mine. He was doing volunteer relief work for the earthquake, and on one of his breaks, he recorded with me. So it was kind of an intense, heavy context, And then Olena Tsybulska from the group Daha Bracha, she sings on the last track. She recorded in Kiev when the Russians were attacking. It was a very tense time for her and her country and her family. And I'm so grateful that Karen participated in the earthquake situation, and Olena uh, contributed in that context. They have their own grief events that they were living as they recorded, and I was recording in my grief state. And to have us kind of come together in this way on this album, I trust will then speak to others that are also grieving, and this might be a type of a balm for them to uh, to help them process. Hopefully, they can hear
Yeah.
themselves in the sounds and the music, and resonates with them and makes them feel not so alone, because the grief experience can be a very lonely experience.
Yeah. So this powerful artistic project that you created, the Shadow Majlis, it stems from a tragedy, right? So maybe you can explain a little bit for listeners who are not aware.
Yeah. My son Oisín, was diagnosed with DIPG, which means diffuse intrinsic pontine glioma. And in lay people's terms, that's basically a tumor in his brainstem. And given the location, it was extremely difficult to treat. And it's a rare and aggressive brain tumor, which affects children, usually under 10 years of age. And we got the news in January 2022, and he passed away in September. It only took 9 months. He was a normal, healthy boy at Christmas. And then a month later, something was very wrong. He was getting dizzy, not feeling well, and we took him to the doctor, thinking it was a possible ear infection or something. And they checked him out; they couldn't see anything. He was clearly dizzy. So we then took him to the Children's Hospital here in Toronto, Sick Kids, and that's where we got the bad news after they ran some tests. And it was, easily the worst.
Yeah.
You think it's something like an ear infection, and you find out no, it's a killer brain tumor. And watching him deteriorate and die was brutal. And we had ups and downs. We were trying to keep hope. I took on I learned some sound healing as a musician. I was feeling bliss. I'm like, what can I do for my kid? At least help his journey. And hoping for a miracle that maybe through some sort of sound therapy, there might be some way to help him. I did. Like he did find an ability to relax, and I was able to help him sleep with some of the sound therapy stuff I was doing for him. And we had a clinical trial in Washington, D.C. that we had tried to attend, which was very promising. There was a company called Sonolisense that has a very interesting treatment that uses ultrasound frequencies to go in and treat the tumor. And again, I found that so coincidental. I don't really believe in coincidences. It was kind of amazing that I was looking at sound therapy and vibrational stuff and healing, and here's this company doing a clinical trial at Washington National, the Children's Hospital there, using ultrasound frequency, using vibration. And so we had hope, but unfortunately, when we got our hopes up, we got into the clinical trial. But when he got there, they ran tests. His tumor had spread like wildfire at that point. Between the previous test and that test was only a couple of months. He looked like nothing had really changed in May. But when we got to Washington in August, it had changed immensely. His tumor had spread all over his spine, up and down his spine and into other parts of his brain, and they couldn't do anything for him. And from that point, we shifted to a palliative stage of his care, and then he eventually passed away the following month. And then my partnership with Kira dissolved. As you know, we were Saintfield before, and I was temporarily homeless, living in various places between Airbnbs and different places with friends. And then I finally got my own apartment after 11 months. I moved about 4 times at least in about 11 months. And I made the album during all of that because I got a grant to produce this album, which I was very grateful to get. It was actually originally awarded to Saintfield, but it was under my name. And since Kira and I split, I carried on with the Shadow Majlis and used the grant to make this album. So while I was grieving and being transient with no fixed address, being it's a type of homelessness they call provisionally accommodated. And I was living with a lot of uncertainty. So this album for me came during a really difficult time. And I was able to, luckily, my brother sent me on a healing trip to Turkey and England. I stopped in to see The Cure, and then went to Turkey and stopped in on Paris on a sort of a soul-searching journey as to what I was going to do. And I planned mentally, spiritually, emotionally for the album on that trip. And I'm so grateful to my brother, who's been a huge support for me. through all of it. I wouldn't have been able to go on that trip without him. He was in position financially to help me, and he did, and it made all the difference for my mental health.
Wow.
It's really hard.
Yeah. I really did. I didn't know if you want to talk about this. That's why I had to bring it up, because I want people to understand what this music was about, and what it was, the inspiration behind this. And I know you probably told many people repeatedly and all that stuff, but thank you for sharing that. And that is a remarkable story, because I know it's difficult, but look at this album. This is a masterpiece. I mean, it's beautiful music.
Thank you.
And you have all these musical talent. I know you play a lot of different types of instrument. You play the sitar, which is one of my favorites.
Mhm.
I have your the stuff you gave me. I still play him on the show. It's one of those things that's just it's a healing kind of vibe.
Yeah.
I know you play the guitar, the bass, right?
Yeah.
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 And
And on this album, I played some keyboards. I programmed all the drums. I programmed all of the electronic elements. And then in the studio, we replaced some of the drums with real drums. But in songs like Deer in the Headlights, the tabla is electronic, and that's what I programmed that wasn't done live. And even the tabla in Savage Castaway is what I programmed.
too. Wow. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to do it all myself initially as demos, and then taking it to a producer like David Bottrill, who is like a dream.
I mean, a three-time Grammy Award winning producer who's worked with Peter Gabriel, David Sylvian, and so much more. How did that come about?
I met him at when Peter Murphy and David J did the Groovy tour to celebrate that anniversary for Bauhaus. I was there as David J's guest, and David Bottrill was there as Mark Gemini Thwaite's guest.
Oh.
And we met that night, and I didn't know who David Bottrill was until that night. And Mark Gemini Thwaite had spoken so highly of him. I looked him up, and I was like, "Holy moly! This guy's resume is exactly the type of music I want to make." There's world music at his time at Real World Studios with Peter Gabriel, working with Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan. They won Grammys doing the Passion soundtrack for the film.
I know, that's one of the best. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Peter Gabriel.
and then he's worked with Placebo, David Sylvian, King Crimson, Mastodon, Tool. I'm like, this guy has got everything I want in terms of stylistic, experience. And this is what the Shadow Majlis wants to do, is bring in world music elements, which I've always done as an artist. And I've been in an alternative goth post-punk kind of scene, industrial, and he's got a hand in that area too. He's worked with Ministry on a remix of stuff as well, so he's not detached from the industrial world either. And it's and then there's like the tie-ins with Pigface and Tool, and it was just like amazingly.
Yeah, it's a perfect collaboration, really.
Yeah, I got to work with this guy, so I approached him, and he agreed, and it was a really, really nice thing. It started off as a Saintfield thing, but obviously, as things happened, it ended up just being me. And then, of course, my friendship with David J.
Yeah, David J.
He's on the record, and of course, Mark Gemini Thwaite, who introduced me to David Bottrill, is a natural choice to include. He's a great guitarist, a great
totally,
and a friend.
And then you got Soriah, who's the throat singing amazing artist.
Of course, a really good friend of David J's, and he of course recommended him as well. And I'm aware of Soriah because I know he's worked live playing with Bauhaus, and he's done some stuff with
I know, I heard him live with Bauhaus. Oh my God, it's a whole new open up new doors, just listening to him. It's just like
of course I was interested in having him because of his world music ties, and he himself is someone who has a similar approach to things, outlook, because as a Tuvan throat singer, he's also involved with industrial music people and Bauhaus, and like he's really good friends with Kevin Key from Skinny Puppy, and they've worked together on some stuff, and so it seemed like a really natural fit to have Soriah in there too. I was like, all of these
All
people
of
came
them. I mean,
forward.
there's so many. Also, Anne Bourne, who works
Yeah,
with Olena
she's
McKennitt,
the president
and
here in Toronto. Yeah,
I mean,
she's she's played with Coleman Barks, who is a translator of Rumi's poetry, Rumi's Sufi poetry, and Coleman Barks has popularized Rumi in the West to the point where he's like outsold Shakespeare. And I met Anne. I was teching for her when she was playing cello, accompanying Coleman Barks's readings. He did a couple of readings in Toronto, and she accompanied him on cello, and that's how my friendship sort of forged with Anne. So she's got this beautiful resume playing with Loreena McKennitt and Jane Siberry, and she's also privy to some of the Sufi poetry and the spirituality that interests me. So that was another fit, you know. And she's totally understanding of what I'm into. She's collaborated with Saintfield as well, and she's collaborated with me on a couple of other things. So she's a really good musician and person.
so tell us a little bit of how you came up with the project name.
The Shadow Majlis. I was trying to, because I have this East-West identity, you know, I have a relationship with both sides of the East and the West. I grew up, born and raised in Toronto. I'm a Westerner, but my family, you know, were Pakistani Muslims, and I grew up with heavy cultural influences from the Muslim world, from South Asia and Middle East. And I wanted this name to reflect that. I wanted to drop my name. I wasn't comfortable putting music out under my name. I just didn't like having my name on stuff. So I wanted to go with something else while reflecting my identity. So that's why the Shadow Majlis came about. And the word shadow I like because it sort of suggests the mystical and, you know, the mysterious outside of the limelight, the shadow in psychological terms. And then majlis means like a gathering or a council. If you Google the word majlis, you'll find pictures of sitting rooms where people sit and meet and gather. So I was thinking, as a collaborative music project, I wanted to attract like-minded people that would sort of be a type of council. We have a message in as artists. We have something to say, whether it's through words or through emotions, through the sounds that we create. And we are people from the fringe. You know, there's so many excuse me pardon me, there's so many brilliant, or when you think about who's in the limelight, who's in the spotlight, there's a lot of talented people, but there's even more talented people in the shadows.
Yeah,
And I've always been interested in the fringe, and you know, that's what alternative music culture is about, like stepping out
right.
And looking at the fringe, looking at what's just beyond, pushing the envelope, pushing the boundaries.
And there's so many talented people in the shadows. Yeah, totally.
And I kind of want this project to be moving forward. I want to collaborate with people. I want to shine a light on people that I think are talented and aren't necessarily represented. Like even a guy like David J, who is known, who has enjoyed a level of success that many of us dream of, but to have him in this context, in this type of musical context, I think was an interesting thing to explore, and to have a chance for people to hear him working with me and David Bottrill with the instrumentation that we incorporated. And
David is so, he has such a great taste in music, and He's really what do you call Renaissance Renaissance man? I mean, this is totally like
He's a true artist. You know,
completely lifetimes, I feel.
having spent time with him and talked to him, he is a really well, excuse me, well-read, cultured,
Hmm.
compassionate, sensitive, feeling. Like he's got everything you would hope an artist would have. A heart, a mind, um, and talent, and an ability to give perspectives on things that you might not have gotten otherwise.
Yeah,
And I
he's
really,
very cultured too, very cultured, very sophisticated.
yeah.
I know we share astrology. I think he's a Taurus, which is he's very Taurian. Very classy guy. Very
Yeah,
classy.
I love him. He's a really, really good friend of mine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this project is your debut album. Do you plan to create more music through this project?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
would love to. I'm currently, just having released it on Oisín's, what would have been Oisín's ninth birthday. I just released it digitally, so now I'm now working on vinyl and CDs. They're in production right now, and my goal is to tour and to play out and do some live shows. And if I can make it work, it's all about funding. If I can make it work and and raise enough money, definitely I want to do this again and again and again.
Oh
This
yeah,
is
yeah. Good. Yeah.
It was a wonderful experience, and there's a lot more to do. There's a lot of songs, a lot of demos that were considered for this album that weren't on the album,
Oh,
but there's still songs I want to develop, and I'm still writing. I've started writing again, and I'm having some ideas for what to do next. And if the money's there and I can afford to get Bottrill or whoever, if there's another, like, I wouldn't mind working with John Fryer. I wouldn't mind working with Robin
yeah.
Guthrie. Like, there's,
I miss John Fryer. I haven't talked to him in a while.
if I can get another producer, or just even go back to Bottrill, it was a great experience working with him. Um, and getting some other collaborators on, and maybe some repeats with, I wouldn't mind working with David J again, and seeing what sort of collaborators we can attract, and what sort of themes we can explore, and instrumentation that we can play with to make some more interesting music. I would love to. This is If I could have my way, this would be it for me. My life would become the Shadow Majlis. It would be something I would be working at all
Yeah,
the time.
it's a great title. Really, it really is different, unique. And one of my favorite tracks here is Mazdur.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and
Yeah.
maybe you could explain what that means to you.
Okay, Masdur means laborer. So I thought of that word because of how hard Oisín worked in his dying days with his illness, and how hard his mother and I worked in caring for him, and how hard all of our care support network worked. It wasn't an easy ride, and little Oisín, who was only 7, was such a brave kid, and I wanted to sum up uh, the 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 difficulty in a word, and Mazdur came to mind uh, as a good one word title for a song to kind of speak to how hard that kid worked to fight. And the song itself is a lengthy one, and it moves through different feelings. It starts off with acoustic classical guitar and some cello, and it's got a certain kind of world music feel with the tabla and everything. And then it moves into, spoiler alert, a dub reggae breakdown inspired by David J. He was
Yeah, I know. I read
the guy who drove that decision.
Mhm.
And you go into a dub reggae breakdown, and then that morphs into this industrial ending with MRI machine sounds and stuff. And I incorporated the MRI machine sounds because the MRI testing experience for Oisín was nightmarish. He hated MRI machines, and he was so brave about those MRI machines, and it was so awful to take him for MRI tests because he hated it and it was frightening. And then we never got happy news. You know, we knew we were just going to find out how bad things are. It was horrible. So I wanted that to be in there. And I when I spoke to Bottrill about the song and how it morphs, I called it a mutation. It mutates from what you hear in the first section, then it mutates into dub reggae, and then it mutates into industrial, and then it ends, and it's sort of like, you know, cell mutation and cancer. So it's kind of speaking to
It's
that whole.
very, very deep what you're telling me. It's just the whole, that's why I wanted you to explain that. I knew what it was, and I read the reviews. I mean, your what do you call that? Your press release. Amazing how you created this, put this all together, you know, with all these amazing talents collaborating with you and giving their best as well, you know.
Yeah,
Mm.
it's I'm not gonna lie, you know, I there's a line in Swallowed by the Sky where I say I have one foot each in hell and heaven. I was in hell losing my child and my family and my home, but I was also in heaven in the amount of love and support I got from people like David J, like the other artists that worked with me, and my many friends who aren't musicians, who aren't on the album but are in my life. It was really strange experience to be feeling all this love while going through this hell. You know, it was uh,
Wow.
very, and that line in that song sort of speaks to that. I on one hand, I was so touched by the outpouring of support, but at the same time, the context in which that support was coming was brutal. It was horrific. And I know that's true for anybody that goes through stuff. And having been the parent of a dying child, I met other parents of dying children at the hospital. And my heart broke for them too. Like, I had my own grief. I'm looking at other families going through similar stuff. And I'm like, how many people, like right now, there are families preparing for radiation therapy for their child tomorrow. There are
Yeah.
people preparing for chemotherapy for their child tomorrow. It's the weekend. They probably had a break. And it's easy for us to not realize these things. Now that I was in there myself, it was heartbreaking to see this reality that so many people are losing children. And then you have situations in the world like Gaza, and you have starving kids in so many countries and so many places of the world. And I have a soft spot for kids. And beyond that, parents, and beyond that, humanity in general. You
I know.
know,
I mean, I can't even imagine what you went through because nobody can really know that except you, you know. It's hard. Yeah.
yeah,
I
it
mean,
is.
you're a very strong man. I mean, that's um other people would have, I mean, everything else that followed after that, you know, that you're so strong, you have a strong spirit.
No, thank you. Don't get me wrong, though. I have my, have,
I know, but you know,
I,
I mean, this, you know, I mean, look what came out of this, you know, and I'm sure you're still going through the transformation because, you know, people do go through that, you know, transformation.
yeah, I'm still grieving. And my mother passed away in 2020. I'm still grieving her.
I know. That's why I'm just like thinking about all the things
Yeah, it's
well,
it's
the last time we talked, I believe that was one of the interviews we were talking about that, right? I think.
yeah. And then when I went to see The Cure in December 2022, Robert Smith was singing about the death of his brother and his parents. And he has those songs that he was performing in that tour. And that also really touched me. And seeing him emote his losses and he was very close with his brother and his parents. And it was obviously difficult for him. And I and Nick Cave. Nick Cave's lost children too.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
these guys, these artists inspire me to do it. You know, Nick Cave and Robert Smith are inspirations for me in dealing with the grief of loss, specifically Nick Cave. He's lost two boys. And he's so graceful.
And look at him, still going, you know. I mean, just
yeah. So
difficult.
Big gratitude to Nick Cave for being an example.
Yeah. And to you, I mean, you know, the music, I have to say, you know, your vocals has always been, well, I love the way you sing, really.
Thank you.
I mean, if anybody's listening right now and hasn't heard this yet, you got to check it out. You would love Ali's voice. I mean, you really have. I mean, even from your previous um you know, your previous projects that you've had, you know, with Saintfield and ARIEL.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You gotta, I don't know if the music for ARIEL, it's anywhere, if anybody can still,
it's also on Spotify and Bandcamp too. Yeah. It's I should put it on the Shadow Majlis website. I'm still fleshing out the website. There's a lot of stuff to see on the site, but I will add a links section to see my other projects. I should do that in the next day or so, to be honest. I'm behind on that. I meant to do that earlier.
And there's so many wonderful instruments in this album that I really like. You know, the tabla by I guess he must be with Niaz, right?
Yeah, Ravi Naimpally has played live with Niaz, and of course I'm a big fan of Azam Ali and Loga.
Me too. I love Azam.
Their music is
oh yeah.
You know,
absolutely. I mean, you guys are in the same, what do you call that? In the same. I mean, every time I play your music, I would play hers somehow back to back because it reminds me of it. Yeah.
Oh, I look up to them. They're to me my if I may be bold enough to say, my elder siblings. You know, I feel we're of a similar family, but they're my respected elders. Maybe I don't know how old they are, but but I look at them, I look up to them, and I respect them a lot.
Yeah. No, you guys are just amazing, talented musicians, and I'm so grateful that that you know we've never met in person yet, which I still want to eventually. You know, I
want to be on the road. With any luck, I'll be somewhere where you can come see us play and we can hang out.
No, I want to. Yeah, like when though?
I'm hoping sometime this year. While I'm promoting the album, I'll be able to hit the road. I'm trying to work on that right now. I'm just starting to play, and I've applied for a couple of world music festivals, and I'm looking to see how I can get on the road. And if anybody's watching this and you're involved with bookings and there's a band that is touring and needs an opener, we'd love to. That would be the ideal, is to tour in a package and and go with other like-minded artists around and do a package tour and not do it alone. And I'm all about community. I'm all about collaboration. And I try not to bring ego to this thing. And I want to work with people. I want to build community. And if people are watching this, like, I'm also open to communication. If you feel like writing me ever, I'm not a snob. I try not to be anyway.
He's not at all.
If you have questions,
down to earth.
by all means, I'll write you back. I love talking to people and I love building community. And making connections.
Well,
Yeah,
I plan to go to Barcelona in October. So I don't know, maybe around then. It's hard to travel, so I have a full-time job and that kind of thing, I'm not like
yeah.
the musicians are free. I wish I was.
Well, it's not
Um,
the easiest, most lucrative lifestyle, but hopefully that'll change. Hopefully people will start buying music again. But no, that's why I want to hit the road, is because that is the way people have a chance of making any kind of income, is selling merch and doing shows.
yeah.
Because we all know nobody buys, or well, digitally anyway, it's hard to make digital sales. People buy vinyl, but the best way to sell vinyl is to play shows and meet people and be at the show and selling it at the merch table. All of my touring musician friends tell me that, and I believe it. And CDs too. I can't believe people still buy CDs, and I already have people pre-ordering CDs. So it's I never expected that
No,
to be.
or maybe you can do a project with children, relating to children with some kind of illnesses, something like
Mm-hmm.
that. Yeah, connected to, I don't know. I mean, I think it's a wonderful project. You know what? Another thing I wanted to talk about was the album covers and
Mm-hmm.
beautiful.
Yeah, it was done by my good friend Stephen Seto.
Mhm.
He has years and years of experience doing graphic design work, and I think he works closely with Artifact Records, and he does stuff
Oh
with
yeah.
that.
Uh-huh.
And he also has his own music. He goes by the name Splinter Cage, and we used to be on a label together in the 90s called Clan 11, and he was in a band called Parade, a Toronto band called Parade. I don't know if you've heard of Parade, but they were a really good band here, and they ran Clan 11. And Steven's been an old friend of mine since back in the 90s, and he's he's a really really talented artist. And when I had the opportunity to work with him on doing this artwork, I was thinking, yeah, I totally trust his vision, and you can see why. He's
Oh
amazing.
yeah, no, the pictures. I mean, if anybody is, you go to your website, which is the shadowmajlis.com, and I'll put
Yeah,
it on the bottom. You can see the album covers, which is just, and then the pictures and all. There's different ones, right? Just
yeah,
the way the coloring, just the way.
yeah. Oisín's on the cover as a picture I took of him on a black sand beach in Iceland. We took him to Iceland on a wish trip in June, about 3 months before he passed away. So that image is from a black sand beach, and the way Steven kind of shaded him out is kind of interesting. I love how that looks. And
Let's see which one.
he
Is that the
also,
one with are you talking about the one with the heart?
oh, the one with the heart, that's Deer in the Headlights.
Oh
That
yeah,
incorporates drawings. If
beautiful.
you look closely, you can see Oisín's name in his handwriting, but we're flipped. It's reversed near the top right part of the heart. And there's other squiggly lines that are drawings that Oisín made when we were in Iceland. And there's also pictures in the Swallowed by the Sky cover of mountains from Iceland, because Stephen also has been to Iceland and took some beautiful photos. So it was amazing that he's got photos from Iceland to tie in, because that's where Oisín wanted to go before he died.
Mhm.
And again, Stephen, proving to be the perfect choice, had all of the amazing images from Iceland, and it was completely relevant. And I was so glad he was able to incorporate Icelandic imagery and my photos of Oisín in Iceland and the drawings he did in Iceland. Yeah.
What about the antlers? The antlers, right?
Yeah, because Oisín's mom is Irish, and
Mhm.
Oisín means little deer. And Oisín's name comes from Irish folklore. He was people that are aware of Irish folklore are probably aware of the Giants Causeway in the north of Northern Ireland on the Antrim coast goes back to the folklore stories of Finn McCool. and Oisín was Finn McCool's son. So
Oh,
his name comes from those Irish folklore tales and means little deer. So the antlers are natural.
oh, thank you for sharing that. I was just wondering. It's beautiful. Yeah, it looks
Yeah.
like you did so much work on this, and so much people who need to just check it out and listen to the music and the lyrics also. I can hear the beauty and the pain at the same time, you know. Um, yeah, thank you for sharing.
I,
Yeah,
my I'd say I'd say my pleasure, but it wasn't the funnest thing to do. But I'm glad I did it. It was definitely cathartic, and
yeah,
I hope it helps people. Like it already has. I've already heard from people that have lost kids and have heard the album, and it's touched them. And that to me is so
I mean,
so special.
one of the things about tragedy is when people have tragedy, they have to use their energy on a productive way, in a positive way, and that's what you did, all through the pain and all that.
Thank you.
You know,
Well, and Nick Cave, if you heard, you probably heard of Ghosteen. You're a fan of Nick Cave. Like, how
uh,
heavy is that?
I know, yeah. I mean, he's like you. He's unstoppable. I mean,
And I went to Brighton when I went to England,
oh,
and
I want
was
to go
trying
there.
to. I was hoping to maybe bump into Nick Cave by chance, but he was in Australia at the time, I think, so it didn't happen. But I got to visit his town after I saw The Cure. I passed through Crawley on the train from London to Brighton. I passed through Crawley, which is where The Cure started. And I was like, oh, wow, I'm at a train stop in Crawley on my way to Brighton. And then I went to Brighton, saw the coast and the beauty down there, and was imagining that, that's the area that Nick Cave sees regularly as his hometown.
I know, no, I want to go to Brighton too. In fact, I'm a big fan of the Vampire's Wife, line, and
Yeah,
I've bought a few things there. I love her line, and
yeah,
of course I love Nick Cave. I've done the same thing for that, and so, and I went to Australia. I went to Melbourne, where he's from, and
yeah.
yes, I think musicians are all connected somehow, right?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I definitely feel a kinship with so many different artists.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Uh,
and I'm
never
so
met,
to
their
have.
Nick, but I feel close to them.
And no, yeah, me too. I feel really close to Nick Cave. He's always on my heart. I
Yeah.
even I even have this goth event here. It was named after one of his songs, "Dies in the Light." It's a
Oh
lyric,
wow.
it's a line uh from one of his songs.
Oh wow. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, so yeah, it was a good turnout. So
Was it a good job?
oh yeah.
When was it? When did you do that?
Um 2 days ago.
2 days ago. Nice.
Yeah, I mean that was the first night. I mean we're gonna do it every month now.
Oh great.
Yeah, and
Maybe one of these days I'll surprise you and show up.
yeah, because I was looking for a title for the event, right? Everybody uses the same, like I don't want to use Batcave. I've done Batcaves before, that kind of thing. So I go, what
Yeah.
am I gonna use? So and Nick Cave has always been an inspiration. So and then
Yeah.
the song the lyrics were written by Anita Lane, right? Stranger Than
Yeah.
Kindness. So
Yeah.
Dies in the Light. That's one of the
Yeah.
lyrics.
Yeah.
It's
That-
so
That's
goth, it's so gothic, Dies in the
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so like I mean it's not a bad it's not a I mean it's a positive thing actually.
Yeah. Well, that's why we have the Shadow Majlis because we die
Yeah,
in the light.
exactly. Yeah, see how connected that is. Yeah, totally.
I,
Yeah, it's so funny. I was making a joke about it too. There were so many people, and I'm going. It's so dark in here. The fact that dies in the light.
well, I hope it goes well. I think it's a good thing to do. Building community, it's
Yeah,
important. We lost it during the pandemic, and I personally, speaking for myself, realized how much I appreciate community
yeah,
and being with people. And I like being alone too, and having my solitude, but as an artist and as a musician and as a person, community. And having gone through the tragedy, community was everything.
Well, big shout out to Shameless Promotion PR. She's so good with she always has all these great musicians. And I learn from everybody I
Yeah,
interview. I learn something new.
I was grateful to find her and to be able to work with her because she works with a lot of my favorites.
I
I
know,
looked
yeah.
at all the artists on her. I'm like, holy crap! If I can be counted amongst those people as her clients, I'm in a good spot. So
Oh,
here
you
I am.
are. Yeah, you are. Yeah. In fact, she told me, and I go, "Oh, I already talked to him." I said, "I already talked to him. We just have to figure out a time." But
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, she's really good at what she does, and I'm really grateful to have an opportunity to work with Shauna.
she's very, what do you call it? Very, if I didn't know her any better, I would think she's a Virgo because she's very, very particular about things. Everything is done right. Everything is she follows up. She makes sure like she's wonderful. And then her press releases are just so thorough.
Yeah,
I love her press releases. I mean everything is in there. You don't have to worry about once you get it. It's like it's all there. You don't have to look for anything.
yeah, that's
So
great.
she does a great job, and I learned so much from all the musicians and I know there's so many. I'm gonna put all the information on the little write up here I'm gonna do when I post this, and then it'll be up on my YouTube channel and
Okay.
on my audio channel.
Well, I'm grateful to you. If if it wasn't for people like you, it would be you know a lot harder to
Oh, thank you.
receive, the support that DJs like yourself specifically, the support you give us is immeasurable and valuable. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. You're always so kind, Ali. You really got a kind heart.
Well, I so do you. You're extremely generous. I'm just
That's why we
telling you it
that's why
is,
we know
Anne.
each other. Well, congratulations on this great album. It's a masterpiece, really is. When
Thank you.
it's I love the instruments you use on your music and the depth of your songs and the titles, and I know there's more to it than that, and so I wanted you to explain that. And you got all these great musicians like David J, who's been to Hawaii. I know
Yep.
David, and the last time I saw him, he came here. I think it was around Christmas time, 2 years ago.
Hmm.
So yeah, you gotta come here. You gotta come here. Just surprise me, or like I don't know. Who knows, right? Who knows?
I'd love to come to Hawaii, and I was actually thinking about you. I was going to reach out when that horrible
Oh
that,
yeah,
that the
fire.
fire.
Mm.
Yeah, I was like, holy moly! Where that wasn't close to you, was it?
No, it's in Lahaina. It's in Maui.
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Um, they're still going through hard times over there. It's not over yet. Yeah.
Yeah.
This
Same
tragic.
with Turkey. Turkey's still
Yeah.
we're still putting things together from that earthquake last year, and I'm sure there are people in New Orleans still feeling the repercussions of Katrina way back when that happened. It's
I mean,
some of
there's
these.
tragedy everywhere. I mean, people don't really know what other people are going through unless you. I mean, some people cover it up. You don't know what people are going through. It's just hard. I mean, that's why it's always good to be kind.
Exactly. And I was I was telling a story on another interview I did about how when I was going through everything, I was that driver on the road or that person walking at the grocery store that just wasn't moving very fast and was probably annoying for all the fast moving people. And they're probably getting really frustrated, wondering why the heck I was going so slow. It's because I was like, I'd lost my kid, I'd lost like so much. And I wasn't able to go fast. I was doing what I could. I was trying to be safe because I wasn't feeling good. I was probably crying. And
Mm.
sometimes emotions, waves hit you while you're driving, and you hear a song or you have a memory, and So next time you're out and about and you see somebody behaving like that, just stop and pause instead of honking and giving them the finger when you pass them.
That's a good
Stop
point.
and think.
Very good.
Maybe they're going through something, because I was that guy when my stuff was happening. I had people blaze past me and give me dirty looks, and I was just like, I wish they knew what you know. I'm not trying to be annoying. I'm just having a really hard time right now.
That's a very good point. Yeah.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
So
I,
be
I
careful. Take care of each other.
I know you also have a healing. I know I'm looking at your website about the sound healing. That's another thing. I know you mentioned that earlier that you also do that, right?
Yeah, I do sound therapy stuff with the solfeggio pipes I used. It's the first thing you hear on the album are solfeggio pipes, and Oisín was playing them. So I opened the album with the sound of those pipes, and I also used
Okay.
tone generators and percussion instruments, incorporating some sitar in it too. So yeah, I'm trying to incorporate music in all aspects of my life, whether it's as a performer or as a healer. Uh, I want to use the experience of my learning of sound therapy when Oisín was dying and extending it to others. And I'm interested in doing palliative care too. When people are dying, they need music and they can't go out. And if you can bring it to them, which I hope to do for some dying people, I'd love to do that for people as a service, and maybe help them feel better if they have trouble relaxing. There are some really cool healing tones I can play for them and help them achieve relaxation in
Oh.
their unhealthy, state.
Do you mind if what is your sun sign again? I don't know if you ever told me before.
Aquarius.
Aquarius. Oh.
Yeah. What does that tell you?
Well, no, right. Pluto is actually transiting Aquarius right now. Do
And
you
what
know
is that?
do you know what house your Aquarius is in?
I don't,
Oh,
but I can find out though,
yeah,
because
let me know. Yeah.
I I had been told. I've been told these things.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't have. That's another thing with the grief process. My memory has been kind of shot with all the grieving and emotional turmoil I've been through. I don't retain details anymore, but I've been told what these, which house and what like specific details about my chart, my readings, and all of that. But
Yeah, if you let me, maybe you can let me know and then I'll look at it. Let's see.
okay, sounds good.
I mean, I'm just wondering because of all the stuff that's been happening with you.
Yeah. Okay. I'll be in touch.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Ali Jafri. His album is out now. The Shadow Majlis. That's the project name, and the album is called The Departure. Beautiful name. It was already released, and a lot of great artists on this album. You got to check it out. Really worthwhile to listen to the music as well, and some of my favorites. There's a lot of them actually. But thank you so much for being on the show, and I'll be sure to post this.
Well, thank you so much. If people want to connect with me, they can. We can, exchange emails. If you want to buy my music, that would be also a good support for me. If you need sound therapy, reach out. I can help
Yeah,
online too. We
I
can do it.
I really
We do.
believe you did something like that. I think it's good. It's kind of like your Chiron, you're giving back kind of thing. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Ali. Okay.
Thank you, and lots of love to you.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Thank
cut
you.
it right